to call the budget workshop to order for the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District. And we'll start with a roll call, please.
Manager Taves,
Here.
Manager Baki,
Here.
Manager Schmaltz,
Here.
President Anderson.
Here. Okay, got a quorum, so let's get started. So Emily is going to control the screen as far as the information that's being shown, and either follow along with a print copy you might have done, or if you want to pull it up on your computers, we can all be looking at the same thing at the same time. The first thing I wanted to do is just to tell you also that we're not going to be doing the architect discussion tonight. That will be at a future, the next actually regular meeting. And with that change, let's get started. Emily, would you show that first slide, please, before we get into the budget? Okay, I want to just give this little saying to you. I found it in some old business things that I keep, and I wanted everybody to approach this because we're going to be looking at things a little differently with these scenarios tonight. That accept what is, in other words, we are where we are, so there's no going back and changing that. Let go of what was, obviously, and have faith in what will be. So we're going to be talking about some things that are different, some things that might be out on the edge as far as our previous discussions have been on the budget. So keep that in mind because we're trying to come to the right conclusion, of course, with the least amount of trauma. So with that, we'll go to the first scenario, the base scenario, number 1, on the information that you received this afternoon. And Emily's going to pull that up. Can you just make that bigger so we can see the actual print? Is everybody looking on a computer of their own for this or on the screen?
I have my own up.
Okay, how about you, Dave? Are you
Yes,
looking
I
at your
have
own?
my big screen up and I can see it clearly.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So just going through these, of course, what you're gonna see here is market inflation on existing properties is set at 3% annually. We're gonna see a chart that we've seen in the past in a different way, but you're going to see that on the next slide, or the next what section, I guess, is the levy summary, and here's all the assumptions based on that. The market value inflation on existing properties is set at 3% annually. This is the CPA's input here. Tax-based growth due to new construction, I had her split that between residential and commercial, is set approximately 1% annually. Revenue and expenditure growth at an inflationary 3% and 4% respectively. Levy set to cover operating expenses plus additional 4% annually on that one. Additional levy increase of 50% of 2025 general fund levy. And annual 3% salaries and benefits increase. This is all inflationary things. No additions or reductions in staff. She knows that the current position is coming on board this year. Interest earnings of 4% annually. CWP loans applied to programs reduce the levy in that year. That's what Manager Schmaltz had presented, is bringing in that 300,000 additional from the Clean Water Fund loan. And so that was add that we thought was good, so kept that in. The 2025 budgeted programs tax levy partially reclassified to general fund as related to salaries. Now what that means is that it's still broken out as you go through the chart, but I had her bring it up into the combined watershed summary so we can look at that. Everything that's been aggregated down or allocated down into the other line items will show combined on that combined watershed summary as a one section of its own. Grow the general fund unrestricted reserve fund balance to cover 50% of the subsequent year's expenses. That's what we've always done. And obviously that's for the operational and staff overhead items. And then grow the overall unrestricted reserve over time to eliminate negative 1.9 negative position as of 12/31/2024. So that's what it was then. So what the end result of this is under that results area, the increase of 45.7% in the levy for 2026, followed by at least 5 years of stable levy increases on needs below 3% increases. That's important concept to keep in mind. Reduced net borrowings, reduced overall borrowing costs, immediately begins building unrestricted reserves, a net position. So you'll see that as we go through these, is that we're starting to be positive right away, and then that continues throughout the following years for quite some time. Which of course gives us more funds, more upfront instead of waiting for 4 or 5 years. Okay, so there's the assumptions. Next, we're gonna look at the of the things that drive, the drivers that drive this kind of a levy is obviously the tax basis. So what you're going to see in here, now this is where we're following our current model where we have some breakouts by area. And that's one of the things that I wanted her to make sure get consolidated, so we see one general fund amount in front of us at one time. The debt service tax levy, these are all those different funds broken out here, programs and projects tax levies. This was interesting to me because there's a huge number that comes out of the levy for the projects and programs. And that was a higher number than I had expected to see, but there it is. And then on the F column, which is 2026, it's always the third one from the left. You'll see that 45.7% increase in that column. And then obviously the years going forward are there. The total levy increase percentage is that gold line or the yellow, dark yellow line. And I wanted you to really understand that. We're showing 2024 in column D, 2025 in column E, and then 2026 in F. Those three are what we'll be looking at the most. But you can see the 5.6% increase in the levy last year. You can see the 45.7% increase under this scenario for 2026. And then take a look at the levy increase percentages going forward. Now, we're working on assumptions, of course, which were on that assumption pages of going forward. And you can see how quickly that levy increase drops over time because we've already paid back a lot of that loss. Or we've refilled, I should say, that kind of hole that was created by not levying enough in prior years. Now, it's still not all the way. This is about half of what should be to be whole. But it's a really good start. I was quite surprised by that chart that she ended up putting together here. And then the chart down below is general fund levy. It shows this breakdown against the levy. So general fund represents 16.5%. Debt levy as a percent of total tax levy is 20.4%. Programs and projects as a percent of our levy is 63.2%. That's really high, in my opinion. And it shouldn't be that, but you can see under 2026, with that 45.7%, it turns around, and so the the general fund levy is a bigger portion, which is what we want. We want as much of that programs and projects levy to be holding, other grant funds or other streams of revenue besides the levy. Okay, the, projects and program, I might as well bring this up now. One of the things that I wanted her to get to, but, she had a vacation plan that I didn't know about until right at the end, but, the other CPA I knew about, but not the one that was working with us. And so we had to kind of stop it here, but eventually, when she comes back, I would like her to break down everything, so that we have very distinct sub-budgets and things that should be paid for by other means isn't part of our levy. But that's to come. Okay, the next column here, just for things to point out, is very important, and Emily's done this in the past for us at the board's request, but this one is beforehand, before this county sends out their data. And what's important about that is these CPAs know how to retrieve that info. I asked them, like I said in the beginning, to break it down by residential unit and new construction, and commercial, the same way. Because it's different, and we have, if we keep going down here, we have 375,000 on line 45. That is the basis, that's the median value of the homes.
Are we in the same chart?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if we go down to line 47 and oh, I'm sorry, I'm let's be reading the, no, I'm
Yeah,
not, that's
I
it.
hear you.
Existing homes, yeah, that's right, is 375. And then the one for commercial is that line with 48 is oh, well, I'm gonna come back to that. There is a line here for the commercial, but it was hard to deal with that one, and so I think she just put a 1% increase going forward on that one. But here we go down to line 55, and we see that the existing tax base, now, she doesn't put in the market capacity, she's just using the tax capacity. And the tax capacity is that line 55. And the net tax capacity for this commercial and whatever area is 205,960. That's for the increase. And now we get to our total increases on line 57. And now in the blue with the white type on line 20, or excuse me, 59, that is the percentage increase on the levy and the tax rate change, excuse me, the tax capacity, and then the tax rate percentage change is the one below it. Okay, so that's the increase or decreases that she's recommending or estimating for those baseline information that we need to calculate increases. Okay, so property tax, again in yellow, property tax for average home is 375 in 2024. And that's the one that we have available to us, so that's the base we're using. And the tax increase for the average home, which is this 375, with that 45.3, see that tax increase for the average home? Underneath that 45.3, that's 2026 recommendation. It's a few points past the decimal off, but almost there with what she's recommending for the increase. And you can see right away in that middle column on 63 is the dollar value of that increase. And so we have $91 that will go to this home of 293 value. And then let's move over if we can. Emily, can you move over on that line to the right? So that we can see that tax increase line and the tax dollar increase for the average homes.
What is it that you're looking to see?
See that yellow box down at the bottom?
Yes.
Yeah. So just make that visible. So those that are looking on the line, it seems like everybody's got their computer except Manager Schmalz. So this is line 62, 63, and 64.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Thanks. Okay, so we've got that dollar value on every year of that going across this channel, so we can see what the impact's gonna be there. Everybody clear on that? So we're looking, as we talked about before, even though the dollar, or excuse me, the percentage level seems so huge, the year of column F, which is 2026, is $91 increase for that 45.3 or 0.7, whatever that was, 0.3. For that increase amount, which is on a percentage basis, it's $91 for the homeowner for 2026. And then everything stabilizes after that. So okay, I'm gonna move on now. I just wanted to make sure we go through all of this so you can understand what you're looking at. This next combined watershed summary. We'll get into this, and this is the budget, again, presented just slightly differently than Emily does, but pretty close to what we're used to seeing. And again, if you go at the top, we start on D with 2024, E with 2025, F with 2026. And we've got tax levy on the top line. That's the one we're concerned about right now. The intergovernmental grants is on line 15. And for 2026, it's just under 1.5 million. So 1.498575. And permit fees and interest income and other miscellaneous income. So that total revenue is 4,298, or excuse me, 4,298,075. Okay, and I don't know what your last, I'm trying not to use the reduction budget, but the budget that you sent out earlier, I think it was early June 6th or something like that. It wasn't this high. Okay, so I don't remember the exact number, but I thought it was closer to 3 million, and that's important. We didn't have time to do those comparisons, but when she gets back from her vacation on August 5th, we'll be able to do those. And but keep that number in mind. So we've got levy income and we've got other income combined here for the general fund. And then staff wages and budgets, we can see she's taken those out of each section and then put them together here, and you'll see the aggregate on line 26. So we're looking at that budget item together through this chart. And there are increases per the assumption table that go forward. The building lease, that's probably gonna change in the future, so that we have a contract that escalates every year, not by much, but that number will have to be changed. And then our debt service, she's got it broken down by principal and interest. I think Emily does that too. And what's interesting to me is that the payoff amount is not as high as I thought it was going to be. And you probably know that off the top of your head, Emily, but, we took out about 40. What, how much? 450,000? Do I have it wrong? 4
4.5
million.
million.
Yeah, 4.5 million, that's right. 4.5 million, and we have how much left to pay in total?
About 3 million.
Oh, 3, okay, so we paid 15. And now we have 3 million left, or half of it almost. Okay, so that's interesting too.
3.8 million, excuse me, 3.8 million remaining.
3.8, and so what was the total? 4.5?
Hold on one moment,
Right.
please.
But the end of this year. End of 25, we'll have paid to just over $1 million. Of our original 4.5.
Okay, all right, so
At
so,
the end of 25.
yeah, so we're at 3.5 and then some change for interest, because it's not so big. Yeah, okay, good. Well, what's interesting is that you'll see as we're able to, we're not gonna reduce the levy, obviously, we're gonna keep increasing it, and when that gets paid off, we are, keeping the levy where it is, and then we've got more to add to other things. Some of that expense in the 3,000 series or the, even the projects. The 5,000 and 6,000 series. So those are interesting, facts that kind of jump out at you. 52 is the expense line. We still have a revenue, under, budget expense on that line, the next line of 615,802. Other financial sources, we have the 300,000 from the Clean Water Fund. She's got that actually in 2006 or 2026. So, that can be talked about how we want that to handle. We might want to just push that back into the, to 2025 as your scenario shows, Steve.
So Madam President, there's 500,000 left that we could borrow, is that correct, Emily? Because where we're at, so we
I
can.
thought it was 3. It's not 3? I thought it was 3.
We can,
Took out one already.
$5 million general obligation note, that was just an arbitrary cap. If we take out 500,000, that would bring us to a total of 5 million total taken out. But we can, last couple of times that we've done this, we've just done an amended and restated note anyway. So,
Okay.
it could be whatever you want.
Yeah, so there's some flexibility there is what you're saying, right? Okay. Okay, so. Going on, overall tax levy, then including the one, the amounts that are assigned to programs and projects. Brings us to 2,616,000. That's where we get the 45%. So again, we're using levy dollars for programs and projects. And that's what that shows. Okay, so the general fund, this is just, I'm going to go through these very quickly. These are the ones that roll up to the combined. So you can spend more time on those, here when we're done tonight, but you get a really good visual of where some of that general fund money is being allocated to. And the same thing then goes to that next line item. It shows the total revenue for this fund and goes into up to 2035, showing that marginal increase that was on our assumption table. Okay, so I don't think there's anything else to point out. But you can see those allocations for this fund throughout. General fund tax levy for this section is 1,548,000. All right,
So just as the question, the fund balance percentage at the bottom, then are those numbers acceptable then, or do they need to be higher?
well, I have the one that we just went over, this is one of my questions. Like I said, she left pretty soon, pretty early, and I didn't get to go over these questions I had with her until she gets back. So let's look at this for a minute, because I was kind of aghast at this. The grant fund, or the general fund tax levy for column F is 1,548,000. And that represents a 432% increase, because it's going from just under 300,000. And so I think this is where she may have made a mistake, or maybe this is intentional, and she just didn't tell me why. But that's a pretty big jump in that area, and I can't figure out why she may have done that, other than to assume where we might have wanted to put more of those dollars. Okay,
Well, I'm ready to bring the reserve back up to our target.
that's what I'm thinking, is it? So, but I just wanted to clarify it with her, so we have a solid answer. The debt service is the next column over, and again, the inflation factors are there. Interest on investment it's not really an investment, but from holding it in the bank account is that 4%. And then you can go through these sections here too. I'll do this one quickly because they're pretty repetitive. But you can you can see for this debt service fund, remember, these are separate funds that governments deal with. Some businesses too, but mostly governments deal on this fund basis. And so you can go through that, and any questions you have later is fine, but you understand how the final numbers were achieved. The ending fund balance on this one is on line 36. And you can see the percentage that it represents. Okay. And then programs, 3,000. This is the same thing, the thing that, you know, I'm not gonna go with everything because they're structured the same, like I said. The only ones I was really concerned about is the ones that were coming out of the tax levy. And so, that's what you should take a look at too, just understanding how much of the tax levy actually goes to these programs and projects. So, we're gonna talk about that when I'm all done here, but that's for the future going on. It's not gonna change in 2026. We don't have time to do that, but it's just the way you represent this, and it becomes important when you're talking about grants, so we can talk about all that stuff here in a minute or two. But the program area, this was a high number too. I think I just went past it. If you can get back to the start of this section, Emily. It's usually on the top breakout.
Is that
Um,
zoomed in enough? Can you see?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. You can see I'm coming back from the downside, but line 39 shows the 500,000 from the Clean Water Fund in 2025. So that should have a very positive impact on our negative net position. So that's good. Okay, here we go. It's on line 16. program and project implementation. Again, is that it went down to 548,000. And that's trying again not to have the levy pay for so much of the project, that those areas should be from, either these MPCA loan or from grants. But again, I think there's a mistake in this one too, so I wanted her to look at that when she comes back and correct for it. She's got a balanced, combined water summary, so I think it's just something that was looked over. It's not having an impact on that combined total. Okay, so on the combined total, it should be taking, here's on line 55, the programs and progress, projects, tax levy. That should be the number that's being pulled into that combined watershed. So I think you understand how this works, right? And that these assumptions are in the assumption table for what's applied across the board. And I'm gonna switch now to that next middle one scenario.
Can you see that okay?
Yep. Okay, here we start. Is that this one, the middle one?
Yes, scenario two.
Okay. Yep, scenario 2, correct. Okay, so assumptions same, market value inflation is the same, tax-based growth is the same. Uh-oh, there we go. Operating expenses, additional 4% annually. Assumption, additional levy increase of 50%. So this is just slightly higher than the other one. You'll notice the other one was like 45. This one is the full 50%. And the rest of it is pretty much the same. Number 9, CWP loan applied to programs reduce the levy in that year. So there's some additional funding from that source for this scenario. Number 10, applied to projects. Okay, they're applying again some of the levy to those programs. Number 10, the CWP loans applied to the projects reduce the need for grants in that year. So this is the assumption of the CPA. 11, 2025 budgeted programs, tax levy partially reclassified to general fund as related to salaries. Okay, this is the explanation about leaving those salaries in the general fund and not allocating them down. I mean, that's fine to do for work purposes, but for the budget, it's best to see those all together in an aggregation line. 12, grow the general fund unrestricted reserve fund balance to cover 50% of the subsequent years. That's always our base assumption. And 13, grow the overall unrestricted reserve over time to eliminate negative 1.9 million. So having the budget higher, of course, provides the money we need, but also that extra beyond the normal so that we can start putting our entity in a better positive position at the end of the year. And we're not recommending those decreases going forward. So if we wanted to keep it stable, we would have even more dollars to put into that reserve fund to bolster that back up to a positive number and not have to rely on any outside bonds or loans. And they're not guaranteed either, so that's the other thing is that you are certain with the levy what you're going to be dealing with. Okay. Well, I'm gonna go on yours Emily, because I just lost my screen here. So let's keep going to the actual, combined. Okay, now I'm gonna have trouble with that. So I'm gonna pull it back up again and try to, just give me a minute. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna pull up the levy summary, so I'm on the same page. Hmm. I don't know if there's anything startling about this, but, again, on column F, general fund operating tax levy, you can see where that's at, $1,548,000. So that's quite a jump from what she had listed here, but we know ours was 1.8 before, but again, I think what's happening here is she's under, pulling up those allocations. We have to look at the total net levy to taxpayers on line 29. So now we see in column E are 1.8 million, and then that's increasing to 2.6 million on line F, which is 2026. And she's got that breakdown by levy fund. And you'll see again in 2026, we have the general levy actually becoming the most of the, or the biggest portion of the general fund, which is what it should be. Hmm. Okay, we've got that same analysis going on here with the, in the next one, and that's the impact to our citizens. And so if we go past everything down to line 59, that's the blue, dark blue background and the white numbers and letters. Okay, so now I'm gonna go over to column F. And you can see that the tax rate change in that is 40.7% from year before. And if we go down to the gold or the dark yellow, we're seeing that column F again, the property tax for the average home is 293. And the tax increase percentage is $91 is the average home increase for that year. And the tax increase is at that 45.3%. That's higher because of the different basis we're looking at. But if you look at column E, that's 2005. And you can see that that's really low. I mean, honestly, that's how low people have been on our line item. So this is going to stand out, of course, because it's a lot bigger than what they're used to paying, but it gives us the cleanest way to go forward from a business standpoint or a dollar standpoint as far as impact going forward. So that's something to think about as we talk, but the idea here is to get done quickly, get those corrections made quickly, and then we're back down into a lower level really fast. We can split it up. We talked about doing that. So we can split it up so that you're paying these higher amounts over 2 years instead of 1. And that is okay. It's not gonna be the same amount, 45, but you might pay another 10 or 15% higher on that second year. That was one of the things we talked about, and you're going to pay a little bit more every year after that, of course, but not startling, so your increases become very even. And that negative amount that you see in these different years is because of the difference in the growth of the city, you know, more houses. She's got that plugged in every once in a while, but that's guesswork, really. You don't really know. So if you go to column L, you'll see, or excuse me, column J first, you'll see a 15.6% increase there, then it's down to 0, and then up to the almost 5% in column L. And that's just how she's worked the values, the tax value of all of the area, not just one house. Okay, so that's it. We've got 3 scenarios here to mull and think about. And this is only number 2, so we need to go to number 3. That's the one with the bond element. So pretty much the top area is here. We've got a grant in there. It's additional levy increase of 50% of the 2025 levy. And that's approximately $145,000 more than it was in 2025. All the others stay the same allocation for salary increases, for inflation. The CWP loan in this example is allocated to this year, 2025.
No, excuse me, just a question. You said that the levy increase was 50% for like scenario 3?
Yes,
It says here it's 28.3 and 26 and 20.8.
I'm
and
looking at,
27.
I'm looking at assumption page. Look at the assumption page. Do you have it? Did you print that?
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah.
Right at the bottom, right there.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not down there yet, am I? That's the reserve. I think she's talking about there. Okay, so going back to line 5, 50% increase in the levy. Approximately $145,000
For just the general fund only.
for just the general fund only. That's correct. Yeah, that's really what we're talking about here, because that's the levy fund. That's what we have to, what you were telling me the other day, that there's 2 other things that have to be broken out. I do remember that slightly, but I don't remember what it is exactly. So we've got the general levy that we have to report in September, and what are the other things?
Debt service,
Debt service, yep. we
and
got
then, well, there's lines for a variety of different things for that form, Emily, that President Anderson is talking about.
There's usually only 3 things that you have to notice, right?
Correct, but you
Yeah.
can do things like monitor. You can levy.
Oh, separate for that. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, we're doing all of that through the general levy though, right? Mhm.
There are regular levy, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, I don't see what you're saying, Steve. I'm not
On
finding.
the results, on the assumption page results. The bottom of the page,
Oh, okay,
number 1.
Yeah.
Why don't you read that?
$2 million, yeah, well, I haven't gotten to the bond yet, so that's gonna change things. And I don't see that number you're talking about though.
Like the levy increase.
Oh,
Yeah.
here it is, the results. Okay, all right, I'm still on assumptions. Increase of 28.3% in the levy for 2026, followed by 20.8. This is the one where it's broken up. We're splitting
Right.
between half of the levy is gonna come from this. You know, the levy actually, and the other one is going to come from that bond that we're looking at, okay? $2 million bond.
Actually, the 2 20s together equals about a 40 or 45. So what you're doing is by the bond issue, you're introducing an extra $2 million in cash that we don't have in the other two alternatives. And that's the only one that gets us to a reasonable percentage of, against our budget for the fund, for the general fund. I mean, they start out at 23, 25, but it gets up to 40 by the end of the cycle.
Well,
So,
yeah,
okay, just an observation, so.
yeah. Okay, so where was I? This is her scenario assumptions. I'm gonna go back to that. Oh, no, it was right above that. Okay, so grow the general fund unrestricted reserve fund balance to cover 50%, the same thing, carry over into the new year to cover those 6 months. Grow the overall unrestricted reserve over time to eliminate negative 1.9, that's the same too. It happens a little faster in this scenario, but, and we're doing something that we haven't done before, is adding in under scenario assumptions on 2022, line 2022. The $2 million bond issuance in 2025. So we're gonna this scenario, we add it at the end of this year. That bond would be expected to come in December. And so we would add it in December and, 1 million will be used to pay down debt, other debt, that, in other words, is the CWP loans we can get rid of totally with that, half of it anyway, and then figure out where to put the other half of that portion, and then the remaining million would be split between programs and projects to reduce the levy pressure on those two areas. Increases of the levy spread out over a future year instead of all at once. So that's a plus, I think. For us, or the citizens anyway, but it takes longer. No reductions in grants, but could be used in place of grants. I didn't agree with the statement, she put it in on her own, of course, and that's possible that we could do that. But I don't know why we would want to do that. So those are things that we have to talk about as a group. Increase of 28.3% in the levy for 2026, followed by 20.8% in 2027. And then it pretty much hovers down on that 3% level going forward after those first two takes. So the question here is it better to do that all at once in 2026, take that 50% there, or spread it out over these 2 years? Because we have to do this, without going out for other funding, we have to do something about that levy, whether we take this scenario or not. And to really do what we need to do, it comes to that 50% level. So,
Well, scenario 1 and scenario 2 are basically the same,
yeah, a little bit.
50 and
It's just-
45, right?
Yeah,
So, okay, but then when you look at this scenario 3, the 20 and the 23 or whatever it is,
mhm,
that totals up to be close to what you had in the first two scenarios, except that they're done over 2 years.
yeah,
But in addition to that,
Mhm.
besides getting all that extra levy as you put in,
mhm,
you've added another $2 million in cash that we don't have in the other two scenarios.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying that's why our fund balance percentages against the total budget are more respectable in that last.
mhm.
Last.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So, but are they high enough? That's the other question I had, is 23, 25, 27% high enough to meet the audit requirements?
Well, she is saying yes to this. This is the other thing that I have a problem with, because typically it would be 50% of the current year's budget
Right,
of the levy, I mean, so you would want
so
to
we're
have
still
that much.
short. Yeah.
Well, yes, but she's got, she's got algorithms behind here that I don't understand, and that's why I tried, but I didn't want to make any changes to the document.
Well, the point I'm trying to make, if you look at the percentages of the
Mhm.
fund against the budget that
Mhm,
we're trying to get to, on the first two options, none of them come much above 12%,
mhm,
which is not even as good as what we had proposed
yeah,
with cost cutting and that. So those aren't gonna work for us,
mhm,
right? unless you do, there's some things you could do, I could recommend some things we could do. That we get it down and close, but I think we have to decide how much cash we really need to get that percentage back up.
Yeah, the bond sources, I am going to look at the county. I think you've had a conversation, you or Emily, have had a conversation with Washington County, and so there aren't the fees attached to that.
Previously, we could add to a general bond issuance
Yeah.
and basically ride on,
Yeah,
whatever, they'll take the expense of issuing the bond.
yeah, the bond fees were much higher than I expected, and this is the company that
Mhm.
Chuck told me about that we used when we were doing the Clean Water Fund loans and setting that up. But I'm sure that they had a huge discount for the state, but doing it on our own, it's just too much. I did a 2 million and a 3 million. And I'm gonna use a 3 million because that's broken out differently, and it's, just shows you how much it is, though. The total underwriter's discount at 1.6% is almost 50,000, 49,120. Cost of issuance is another almost 20, it's 18.5. And then, the rounding amount, they just work in round numbers. It's $2,300. So anyway, that gets sort of untenable. This was done for 10 years and she was going to do 15. So, that right now, this cost is way too high. So, and that is mentioned, I think, in one of the, comments from the CPA. Is that we're not really helping ourselves. And here it is, it's an, increased borrowing costs. This is number 3 now, scenario. Increased borrowing costs upfront, that's down on line 29. And during the term of the loan at a higher interest rate. Delay of building unrestricted reserves, which is what we're doing in the other two. No effect on net position as that statement follows full accrual accounting. And the increase in cash would be offset with increased debt, therefore net position would not change. 5, increased debt monitoring from bondholders is possible because they usually like to loan on programs, long-term programs and projects, and so much of ours is buried in our general fund. And so that's not a good thing. That's what prompted me to think about how we could restructure our presentation of our financials and have them be in that it's capital implementation projects is what it's called. And it's a separate schedule for cities than it is for what we're doing. And so if we follow that city example, our general fund would only have those overhead expenses that are common in running a business. And there might be 1 or 2 other things, but we wouldn't have $1 million in there for, for doing projects or programs. That would all be on the CIP, and that's a separate schedule. And because that income is so volatile, we don't know if we're getting a grant or not. And we've got the ones listed on Emily's schedule that tell us that. And so it's just putting it into this, different format where you can attach it to any grant application that we're doing so that they can see all of this is handled under that fund. So it sounds like trickery, but it really isn't. I think we've just had a miscoding from the beginning on our financials where that stuff shouldn't have been in that category. We should have created, this separate category way back when. And it's not difficult to change that, but of course it requires some effort.
Who
And
has to approve that?
What?
The change?
We do, the board.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just the board. But what I'm saying is that it would give us better opportunities to go after loans that are based on implementation. Or that beginning work, which is the prelude work that has to be done by the scientists.
The other thing it would do is it would solve our problem to get the ratio up to where we have to be. When you
Yeah.
include all those costs in there, all the program costs contain a lot of our salaries, so that should stay in there, but the project costs could be brought out. And I think that would save, that's what I was gonna suggest
Yeah.
here also, that would save us
Yeah,
quite a bit of money in terms of having to cover that
Yeah.
in next year's budget.
I agree, but it's not, we do have some of our own staff, it's not just the engineer's time. That gets paid for as a separate item on that CIP plan. But the other thing that we have to add to that is the preliminary fund for doing all of the engineering work and the planning of this project before you get to implementation. And there is a grant, Emily, I think knew about it, but, because this has been around now since 21, I think, was the pilot. And this is for the watershed-based implementation funding, and when they say watershed-based, they mean the big regional ones, like the Lower St. Croix. That's what this was designed for. But it is the broadest sort of almost like a county plan, a block grant, where money was given for general things, but not specified down to a specific type of project. But this is obviously meant for watershed work, but it includes that preliminary fund that we haven't ever had before. And because it's not in the Lower St. Croix management plan, we can't have access to it, apparently, is what Bowser's telling me. Emily has had some actual experience and did successfully get some of that money for us. But you want to talk about that for just a few minutes, Emily, on what that was and how you understand this to work?
Sure. Yes, the watershed-based implementation funding, in terms of Bowser, the state, it is very general. They allow a lot in there. Monitoring isn't one of them, which is kind of a whole nother can of worms, but it gets allocated, in a very specific way. And so some of it goes to the metro portion of the Lower St. Croix Basin. Some of it goes to the greater Minnesota portion. And then the metro people need to have a convene meeting and decide if they want to pool or not. We've always historically pooled it. So we've taken this money, we've put it all in a big pot that serves the whole Lower St. Croix Basin, and then create a work plan that shows how we're going to spend it. And that goes through all sorts of committees and ultimately approved by the policy committee, and then goes out to all of the boards. So you might remember that coming through to our very board, approving that work plan. And it basically takes that pot of money and says, this much is for this purpose and this purpose. And it all gets tied back to the Lower St. Croix 10-year plan. There's this series of gatekeeper criteria, there's an implementation plan, there are priority areas, and you need to go step by step and say, okay, Bowser doesn't really care where this money gets spent, but this Lower St. Croix 10-year plan has a very specific path that you need to follow to say that you are eligible to use these funds for this purpose. And Comfort Lake Forest Lake has been really successful at submitting project applications and utilizing some of those dollars. A couple examples, we got some pre-project feasibility money for the Heath Iron Enhanced Sand Filter project. We got some pre-project feasibility money for the Forest Lake internal load analysis. And then we also got a pretty big grant, which I'm sure folks will remember, for implementation, construction costs of the Sunrise River Highway 61 project. So we've been, tapping into these funds already, using them for various purposes, all the while making sure that we're, adhering to all of these strings that are set forth in the 10-year plan for the Lower St. Croix.
Thank you. So that gives you a better understanding then of how much access, if we could get access to all of this grant money in a good way, we could solve a lot of problems by going to the Lower St. Croix. And that's really the idea behind doing all of these bigger watersheds, is that Bowser doesn't want to dispense grants from the state anymore. They want to do it through these 81 more regional watershed districts. And when I was talking to Barb Heisel, is that how you pronounce her name? Heiko, okay, last week, I said that if they're going to be called watersheds, they have to start thinking like watersheds and acting like watersheds. And, she agreed they're not going to get rid of this. They're very proud of our watershed and how we have been able to do so many projects and, get things done. And so they hope to use this as a model for other areas because the other, there's not a lot happening in the other ones, a few of us, a handful, but not much. What I noticed is that on the list of the 7 county metro areas, our district isn't even listed. And we're not on the map for the lower St. Croix metro area, so that's gonna get corrected, but there's an allocation assigned to all of the parties within that grouping. And so if we're not listed with our own allocation, then that's not part of the lower St. Croix piece. And I don't know how long that's been going on, but, you know, we have to be at least equal with, I would say, Capital Region, maybe they're too high, but.
So we haven't been
Food
getting our fair share. We used to get a check from them each month
Mhm.
for our fair share of that, right? When that first started?
When it first started, yes, there was an allocation, and then we went to this other model within when Lower St. Croix became a one watershed, one plan, and groups had discussed it and offered to put the Washington County allocate the portion of Lower St. Croix within Washington County into the general for the entire Lower St. Croix. That being said, then both, you know, in the example, and I know Emily has the data, but South Washington, Comfort Lake, Forest Lake, and Carmar have all asked for and received monies through that, and
Okay.
so we've received our share.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Okay.
But anyway, so we're going to be added to that list and there's a dollar value for each member of that particular section. And so we'll be finally on that one, that would be good. But anyway, I was very impressed with this grant, and so now we just have to figure out how we can access it and do that more readily, because instead of looking for different grants, we can use the same one for our preliminary work and our implementation work. And it's expansive.
So that allows us to get, right now, our project grants are running around 72%, if you look at the last 5 years.
Mhm.
So you're saying, can we now change that 72% to 80 or 85 for next year, and the years after?
Well, I don't know if it's gonna be next year, I hope so, but I don't know, Emily, what's your feeling on that? If we can get this
I mean, that would help us, that
straightened
would give us
out,
another $300,000.
we'd have to probably do some kind of an amendment to the Lower St. Croix plan. But we just approved one today, so that, remember that one where we had a question about, or you had a question about whether we were included,
Right.
right? And we determined or called and we are part of that change that we just approved today. So it is possible, takes a while. I mean, that happened back in April and we're just seeing it now for approval. Cause we only meet quarterly, so it just takes some time, but if we can dive into this a little bit more and get a course of action. That's all the point I wanted to make tonight, is that we do have an outlet here for getting that preliminary money taken care of. If we can figure out how to get it through the Lower St. Croix. Because I asked if we could do direct grant applications and we can't. We have to go through that organization. But, you know, they have to be the caretaker of the grant, in other words, so there's a word for it.
They're the fiscal agent.
Fiscal agent, thank you. Yeah, they have to be the fiscal agent. So, and that's not a big deal to us, I don't think. We just want access to the grants.
Which we do.
All right. So we've got some options here. So the question is, just what you were going through is what's the best scenario here so that we don't have to do cutbacks and we don't have to, stop our forward momentum, is there a way that we can use one of these scenarios to keep moving forward?
Ask the board if they have any opinion.
Well, you guys want to weigh in?
Yeah, see, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like, scenario one is a levy increase of 45.7%.
Mhm.
Scenario two is an increase of 45.7 plus 300,000 in borrowing.
Yep,
And scenario three is an increase of 49.1 over 2 years and borrowing of 2 million.
yes,
Now, I
that's
understand
right.
that the borrowing helps to buy down some of the debt that we have, but it's also putting us in more debt.
Correct.
So,
Over time, it's kind of like refinancing a mortgage. So you get the money, but you have to pay over time. And it might be longer than, your first mortgage, but you want access to that money for some reason. So I kind of look at it like that, but you've got it right on, Doug. I mean, that's exactly what these scenarios are doing.
so in scenario three, we're refinancing a 15-year mortgage to a 30-year mortgage. We're
Mhm.
using 15-year bond at 5% to pay down some of these 7 or 5-year notes at 0%. Is that correct?
1.5%, I think it is.
Both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Both.
Well, the
Some of them
10
are still.
The 10-year, yeah, but the 10-year ones, one's almost paid off and the other one is, maybe
Mhm.
3/4 of the way,
Mhm.
at least the way I looked at it. So most of it's coming from that later period, but yeah, in essence, that's exactly in a nutshell what this is all about. And just a slight correction, the sheets I got from the bond company, were done to 10 years. And we were talking about 15 years before that, so I have to
Hmm.
get that corrected. And when the CPA comes back, all of these little corrections that I'm talking about can be fixed, when she comes in. And then I can send that out again and you'll get a final number. One thing I wanted to say too, and I'll come right back to you, Dave, Doug, because I know you probably have more questions, but, one more thing, like I said at the beginning, is, it's best for us to look at the future and what we need to do for the future and not get tied up with what we've done in the past, because we are trying to mount, a chasm here that we had in deficits. And we've got to look forward and say if we can do it all at one time, it might be a shock, but when you look at the dollar value of that increase, even though it's a double-digit increase, it's still not that big of an increase for the average home in dollars. Because we're so much lower than all of the other people that they deal with, the cities, the school district, and their huge budgets. We still have a tiny little budget here. So the percentages are always gonna be bigger when we have to do, bigger things for us. So that's something to think about. And then the other one is, we have the leisure, I guess, to say, that's not the right word, but we have the ability to enter a higher number here in August than we have to live with, in December, when the final numbers have to be given to the county. That is when we can go down, but we can't go up. So if we err on the side of more for the reporting we have to do now, and then there'll be a public hearing, of course, we have the ability to lower that after a few more months of tossing it around. So I just wanted to keep that in mind
Mhm.
as we talk about it. So go on.
Yeah,
I'm
for
sorry
the,
to interrupt.
I guess I'm targeting this to you and Steve and to Mike. Of these three scenarios, which gives us the softest landing without compromising our programs and keeping us strong at the tail end of it? Can you make that call yet? I realize there's all kinds of things could happen down the road, but looking at these three scenarios.
Yeah,
I think the other question would be, this is all based upon a lot of assumptions.
Yeah.
And it's over a long period of time. We've worked before with Emily and I are just looking at trying to get past the next 2 years, 3 years. But,
Mhm.
some of the assumption here, I think, are penalizing us with these strategies, and I think we have a good basis for changing some of these numbers.
Mhm.
And we can talk about that later on, but I just want to make that observation. I think we can't just assume this is all perfect. It's not. It's got some
Oh, no.
pretty gross assumptions on it that I think are hurting us, so that should be changed based upon our experience of what's gonna happen. So that's
I
something
think,
I think we should look at. that.
yeah, I think the point that she's making though is that if we take care of it up front, the big heavy lifting up front, then it goes back to a normal range pretty quickly. And we can start putting that extra money into our reserve fund. And at this point, it's gonna be the general levy, but it would end up in our reserve.
Yeah, okay. We haven't heard from Dave either.
No. I want, Dave, you have any questions or points you wanna make?
Yes, the $300,000 loan is only in scenario 2, is that correct?
Mhm.
Yes. Well, that's only because that's what's left in our current grant. Approved grant that we have with the MPCA, is that correct, Emily?
No, there's nothing left in the current approved loan. We just closed
Okay.
it out, so.
So that's getting another loan?
Yeah, that's a new loan we took
Oh,
out,
okay,
and
I'm
that should
sorry.
be in all 3 scenarios.
Yeah.
That's what
yeah,
I
yeah,
was,
well, it
that
is.
was my question, is I understand it's in all 3 scenarios,
Okay.
including the $2 million bond in the third scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's correct. We're using the bond and the levy. Remember, it's
Right,
together. Yeah,
my observation is the third scenario does split out the tax levy increase over 2 years, which
mhm,
is approximately $50 per year increase for the average home of $375,000, which might be more palatable than doing it all in 1 year.
mhm. Yeah,
The
that's.
question I would have for Steve is, Steve, when you presented what you and Emily had put together, what is different here?
Well, I think not too much, except we can get into the bond issue is different, but let me just make a couple observations to answer your question, Dave. If you look at the percentage the fund is of the budget
Mhm,
and the first 2 options, I don't think they cut it, so they're not even gonna work for us.
okay, all right,
Does everybody accept that observation?
I do, yeah,
And then the reason the third option, Dave, works is because we've added $2 million extra cash. Again, along with the 28 and the 21% levy increases. So, that helps us get to where the numbers are a lot better. And, so my question is that if you look at the bond issue, we're buying, and some of the observers are already, I think Doug observed this, but, we're paying off loans that have 0 interest. And we're picking it up with a loan that has 5% interest over 15 years. So it's a very costly trade-off for us. Plus the fact that a bond commits us to all those dollars in the future, we can't get out of it. So my thought is that the approach we kind of took with Emily and I, what you're taking with number 3 here, but rather than using bonding dollars for it, why don't we try to just bring back maybe a couple more loans, another loan as we see the need it to get there at 1.5% rather than 5%. If you want to have a feeling, look at your, if you got your zone 3 here, go to where the interest cost is. What page is that? It's called debt service breakout.
Line 25.
Right, so go down to the middle where it says interest payment. Everybody got that line, interest payments?
Mhm, mhm.
And you go down and you see that the interest payments for our current loans are up above. 10,000 this year, 18,000 next year, 21,000 the following year. Now go down and look at what the interest payments are when we have that 2 million bond. For 2026, instead of 18, what we're paying right now, you take the 18 away, we're paying an additional $100,000 to get that extra money for that year. And the following year, we're spending another $93,000 in interest costs. And the third year, it's 88,000 against what would have been roughly $1,500 for every 100,000 we take out as a loan. So we're really paying a lot of money and wasting a lot of money on interest and not gaining really much traction. I think we're much more efficient in adding a couple more loans. I mean, who cares whether you own it to the bank or to
Exactly.
something, right? At 1.5% difference, I think if we're gonna add $2 million, or maybe we only have to add another $500,000,
Mhm.
it's gonna be a lot cheaper to do it that way, I think, than it is than getting but the thing is, by looking at that bond, that certainly brought that out to everybody's attention, so it was good to look at that option, but that's the thing that I see right now, is that we should look at that. The other thing I think is important is, you look at the assumptions on the projects, and let's go to page.
The same number 3?
No, combined watershed summary, which is like the third page
Okay.
in.
Yeah,
That's this historical Emily chart that we've been looking at,
The scenario 1 or 3.
Right.
scenario 3. Doesn't make any difference, they're all the same numbers. And what bothers me is that on project costs, we took the project costs from last year, which was almost $1.8 million. And what we used was an average of the last 5 years, which was $1.1 million for a project cost. And we used that for 2 years. Well, they took a high number, like 1.79. We don't have many years where we spend that much money on projects. And they projected it out at 4% a year. So you get out there, now you've got average project years of $2 million.
yeah.
And that, now we've got to cover 50% of that in our general fund. Is that part of the general fund, like grants and all that kind of stuff in there?
Right, but I mean, grants,
Should be 90. Grant should be 90%.
well, if we change our strategy about how we approach it, I mean, we've been pushing to keep the hopper full and then incurring upfront costs, but if we change our strategy and included it in the grant request, then we could cover more of the engineering and the analysis.
Right.
So, but I mean, so it wouldn't be 50%, but you're right, that's a high number.
Mhm.
But before, just as the meeting started, so we do have requests for 1.4 and then $3.3 million in Lessard Sands. So they may come into effect in 2026.
Combining.
So that's the
combining
point I want to make.
three.
I think rather than putting 1.1 in there as an average, what's also happening is our 10-year plan has changed and we're starting to move now, certainly since we got the flood report and we got the Greenway report, we know kind of what's coming over the horizon. At least I have a feeling for what's coming over the horizon. We can see over that hill a little bit. And so what's happening is that we've got a lot of projects that can be done for flood control using city property. And if we do that, we're not going to be involved in that. The city's going to pay for it and we're going to get grants for it, but we're probably not going to be doing a lot of the engineering work on that.
Well, I think we still will be.
would,
You
yeah.
think so?
Oh, yeah.
Just like Bixby, we use their land, but we did all the work,
Mhm.
did all the engineering design.
Okay, and then do we get grants for that to cover that?
Well, we can if we take this different approach on grant seeking and.
So maybe my assumption is incorrect, but what I was recommending we do is take the 4 grants that we've got coming over the horizon that aren't in the forecast yet. And bring those forward as best we can, knowing we know what the grant is.
Mhm.
So what would the expenses coming with that if we put it back into the budget next year or maybe the year after, whenever they come due?
Mhm.
And then if we took some of those projects that we talked, the small ones, first 9 that they showed,
Mhm.
what would an average project like that cost? And how would that impact us if we took that on? Otherwise, the only other water quality project we got going that I know of are the ones that are associated with green space. Or it's a flood control, but it's also a restoration of a wetland. And those seem to be longer term more expensive projects that probably aren't gonna drop out of the hopper for a couple, 3 years.
Mhm.
And by then, hopefully, we'll be past the loan situation. But anyway, you should look at those, some of the examples, those examples and see how soon they might move forward. And, not that we wanna rush them, but just, we can only do so many a year when we know
Well,
that.
we have that in the first packet, there was that sheet that was, like that one, 8.5 by 11
Right.
almost. And it had all of the projects, coming projects.
Right.
And the, little and big comfort sub-watersheds are kind of
Mhm.
combined.
Right.
And so there's the big, re-meandering of Shallow Pond. And I can't remember all of them right off the top of my head, but there's a number of big ones that we've been waiting for. And that fits so many buckets. I mean, it's green space,
But that's already in the budget.
it's flood,
That's in the
I-
26 budget
Really?
already.
no?
Right, so but Emily also just reminded me that she did in the last, is what you're suggesting is that uncertain grants. So
Yeah.
there were, so that piece of it, but it's still, it's important to consider. I mean, we're looking to apply for, or in the process of applying for certain grants that will have a budget impact in terms of expense.
Well, when we first did
Yeah.
this, I thought that it was easier to do an average. But now that we're getting into this, I think it'd be worthwhile to take the time, look at those projects and see
Mhm.
where they fall in what year and what the grant is and what the cost is.
Sure.
And then when we got, if some of those are real and like this, like the ones for the city,
Mhm.
then I think might change my thinking about how aggressive we have to be.
Well, I'm
So-
gonna be working with Emily, and she and I will probably have joint meetings with the CPAs. And do that separation of how we want the reporting to look, so that when we do a grant. And they want some proof, we've got this CIP schedule that lists everything, things that we've gotten money, just like Emily's report now. It shows us what's in the works and what we've gotten grants for already, so those can be scheduled, and then what we're working on. And it'll be on one nice little sheet and just move over those things that are in the 3,000 series that,
Well, don't move them over, we'll have a discussion about what we can afford to move over. Because the other question here is that, we're coming off of 6 years of very aggressive loan to get all this stuff done, right? So now we're not gonna light another big rocket ship and send it to the moon here over the next 5 years.
we've got.
We can't afford to. So we have to cut back on it a little bit in terms of control what projects move forward. And even though we've got things in the hopper, we may have to decide, well, we gotta do this one, but not this one and hold off, unless we have a grant for it. But
We do
then-
that every year, and that's what we're talking about,
Okay.
same thing. The original budget didn't have anything for Forest Lake because you weren't at that critical level. But over time, as it took time to get everything going and we finished Bone Lake, then all of a sudden Forest Lake is close to that measurement, so we had to put that in.
Yeah.
But the original budget was never changed, and so we should sit next to some guy at
I'm just
Well,
saying
say
that,
progress today,
the
yeah.
2 million numbers I'm seeing on here are a lot bigger than our average of 1.1 over the last 5 years. So we are
But
accelerating.
We have bigger projects though, with more dollar projects, higher dollar.
I'm not sure we can always afford them either. That's what we have to look at and
But we're
see.
combining several things at one time, that's the point.
Right,
These are multiple benefit projects that we're looking at. Not only are we cleaning up for, the last of our sub-watersheds, but in the process of doing that, we're touching all of the floodplain issues, the green space issues, and comprehensively taking care of those.
all I'm saying is we got $1 million here in a bonding money. And if we replace that with two $500,000 loans, at much lower interest costs, we might gain
Yeah.
a little
The only thing
traction.
about the the MPCA loans is they've reduced their time of payback to 7 years.
Right,
That makes it crushingly hard because of
Mhm.
the higher dollar value you have to give them
but
every.
that's 7 years out, while we're getting towards the end of our other loan payoffs too.
It won't. So you take the loan out and execute it, and it starts in again, so that's the only,
Well, you don't make your first payment until 7 years, do you?
No, it's
No.
when you're done,
So
when you're
you-
done
you
taking out all
spent
the
it.
dollars. Yeah,
You took out if you said you've added another million to the 5 million, as soon as you've spent, even if you did 500,000 each year, So at the end of the second year, you would,
Start paying it back the following year.
right, well,
On-
actually, I
on
think.
that-
as
on
soon
that
as-
portion.
Well, do each one, it would be loan A and loan
Yeah.
B, so you would,
That's because we were approved
Right, it
for
would be
$5
6
million.
months after, yeah.
We were approved for $5 million. And that's
it
what.
did have a bigger
and
impact,
there's a
I
bond.
think, than we'd have to
Well,
go through
okay, so that we
scenario.
need to run that scenario. Maybe,
Sure.
maybe the interest, bond interest is cheaper then. I don't know.
The
We
one-
haven't run that
The
out.
one thing that we could do too is we can have a $2 million loan from a local bank. No more than that, according to statute. And we checked with, our bank. And they, I think
Like
Emily
6%.
had 5.25. I heard 6 when I talked to,
Yeah.
the loan guy there and what, and I could sense I could sense the kind of
Well,
nervousness about saying that, well, this is money that, well, we paid for and we shouldn't have because it should have been in the program and project area, and that is, that's not something they like, although they could deal with it. But you've got 10 years to pay back that loan, not 7.
Yeah.
And that's just, really, I think what it has to be, able to be handled on a year-to-year basis. So we can't have these gigantic paybacks when the
right.
payback period is so short. The other thing I was gonna say though is, Emily and I have talked about this in the past, is that there is a board of citizens, basically, but they come from agencies, but they actually run this group that is part of MPCA, but sort of separate and kind of manages it. But you can go to that group with your proposal and they will approve it or not approve it. But you have to do it a year in advance because you have to be on their project. Jump in here at any time, Emily. Their priority list.
Okay.
And if you're on the priority list, then you can get the money. I don't know why they have to wait a year because that is a rotating fund.
Yeah.
And you can apply anytime. There's not a specific time to do it. But that's something that we really haven't investigated deeply to see if we would qualify for that. And whether or not they would grant us an extension on that or give us more time to pay.
The other thought would be that, Powell, I just heard this on the news today, that Powell's term is up in May.
Oh, yeah,
So, he will not be around
yeah, yeah.
in May. So the interest rates are kind of crashing down next May. If he doesn't,
Yeah, I was going to mention. this.
so if we're gonna get a $4 million,
Whatever.
we should try to take a short-term loan to where we can get those lower interest rates,
Mhm.
if it's gonna be 15 years.
Yeah.
So that's something else we all should put in the back of our
Mhm.
minds, and we may have to buy some time till May
Get
and
it,
fill in with a loan to cover that short-term payment.
yeah, get it.
Because
with-
that'll worth be worth
tranches.
3 or 4
Yeah.
points to us at least,
Mhm.
probably, so. I don't know.
Yep. Did you have anything to add to that? Emily? On how that council
Regarding
works?
the Public Facilities Authority and the State Revolving Fund, is that what we
That's
were
it.
talking about?
Yep, that's it.
Yep, I've had a few conversations with, it's, some programs are through the PFA, some are through the Pollution Control Agency. What they're looking for is big infrastructure projects for the PSIG. And so it's not going to pay off our debts. It's not going to pay for operating costs. They want like a single big infrastructure on the ground project, like a
Mhm.
stormwater treatment.
Yeah.
And they're not flood focused. You need to kind of play it a certain way. They are stormwater focused. So it needs to have a stormwater benefit. It needs to benefit an MS4 community.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly what the Comfort Lake programs are going to be, the Sunrise, pond, or the shallow pond is managing stormwater. Actually, all of our programs on 61, all of those, including Bixby Park, was a stormwater program. We had too much water coming in untreated into Chisago County.
Uh,
So, yeah,
President, though, that's another loan, right?
what is?
Through that PFA public,
Yeah, it's like she said, it's a bigger, broader thing. They're looking for infrastructure. But I don't think it has to be urban. I mean, that's the point that she was making, but
But
we
not a
will get,
grant, it's another one.
well, it's a
Oh, it is
loan,
a
yes,
loan?
yes, I'm sorry, it's a loan.
Oh, I thought it was a grant.
No.
Oh.
No. No, but there are grants out there, these multi-purpose grants for stormwater, flood control, climate resiliency. They're out there where you could combine all of that together. But the point is that the gentleman that was MPCA, our contact, Emily talked to him more than I did. But I had a couple of conversations with him at various times and, he was so willing to go to this council and get whatever we needed. Because we don't have to, in that situation, you don't have to stay with the same rules that get published.
Well, EOR knows a lot about this because they've been through Rochester with this stormwater stuff, I mean, with this flood thing, so they could probably give us an idea whether our grant coverage is gonna be 72% or whether it could be higher than that. And if we have projects we know are coming that are 85 or 90 or 100%, that's gonna help our situation here. So that's why it's another reason to get those out there and have EOR's input on what they think. And to be honest about how fast they can move these things
Right,
along.
and make it part of our planning
Right, and then we can look
from
and
the
see
very beginning.
what, then change these numbers. Maybe lower some of these or raise them or raise the percentage in terms of coverage instead of 72 on 1.1 million, we
Yeah.
might have 92 on
Mhm.
2.5 million.
Yeah, and then make sure that they also detail what the preliminary costs are going to be for that preliminary. A feasibility study, that's what they call it, the engineers. Okay,
Okay.
to get to the project level. Yeah,
Some of these they may have to estimate, but are just guessing
Yeah.
at this point in time, but.
can we ask Mike and Emily to look into those that are listed on that sheet that we got in our first packet back in June? The breakout. There was a list of projects to come up.
Oh, I think it was just in the last one though too, right, Emily?
So are you talking about the flood resilience action plan framework?
Well, that's one. I'm talking about the one I think EOR put together. It was on a 8.5 by 11 sheet. And it had color in it, so all of the data on where we're at, and where we've been at with prior work was on there. Sure, it was in that first June packet. And these are the things that we were looking at for the coming year.
Well, you
Project.
certainly got the 401s that we're waiting on right now that are uncertain, right? So we got those, and then we should do some estimates on those first 9 flood control things using city land, which will be done in the Broadway area.
Well, that's the priority work that we were talking about.
Right, but just to get an idea, what does a project like that cost, you know, and then how much, what percent grant will we expect and who's gonna pay for it, us or them?
Yeah, we just talked
So-
about that at that last meeting.
So,
And they got to identify, we know what the priority areas are for flooding. Now let's attach some projects to that.
Becky, is this
and
what
then
you're
we've got a
referring to?
couple,
Yeah, I think that's part of it, but there were things other than, Comfort Lake watershed stuff or sub-watershed stuff on it.
There's one for each of the 4 lake management districts.
No, I didn't see all 4 of those. This one I saw, but there was another one that I'll look for it at home. I think it had some brown edging on it, you know, some brown graphics of some kind. But anyway, it was all listed. Just the thing we're talking about is lay out these projects that are coming up. They're not scheduled yet, but let's get some numbers attached to them, preliminary numbers attached to them. But according to this grant from this Bowser WBIF grant, you can have multiple projects staged. So you can go to them with that type of plan. You're not gonna get all the money at one time, but over the course of years you can. But it's much more expansive than any grant that I've seen.
Could I make one
And,
quick point?
Very,
About
very encouraging. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just one of the things about the WBIF is, yes, it's very expansive. There's a lot you can do under it. We are sharing this with 15 other partners and
Yeah.
as well as cities that go through the partners. And so that budget gets stretched really thin. half of it to date has been used for like shared services, hiring on shared educators, administration, things that benefit the whole basin. So that remaining pot that we can use for certain projects, it's smaller than the Clean Water Fund competitive grants that
Yeah.
we've had more success with. So it's,
Yeah.
we're talking a lot smaller dollar amounts compared to
Cool.
the other ones.
Yeah, well, these mixed grants, these mixed purpose grants are I think, the flanker for going forward. The DNR has a lot of money for infrastructure. MPCA has some funds set aside just for that. And those are the two big ones outside of Bowser's, or the WBIF grants that I know of. But yeah, we've got a lot of places to go, I think, for some of these bigger dollar things, as long as they are multi-purposed and include infrastructure for stormwater, climate resiliency, and floodplain issues. But to house all of that, you've got to have a place for all of this. You've got to have that green space element too. And with that comes saving wetlands or storing wetlands for all of that to work. So it's pretty, that's what I mean by all encompassing. It's not just one thing, it's all of those things that we're starting to plan out for right now.
Okay, so we concluded that we're gonna have to look. The first two scenarios were interesting in that, but we think we're short of money, right?
Mhm,
Because we didn't get our percentage up.
mhm.
So by adding $2 million, we got our percentages up, but now the question is, how can we fine tune that?
Mhm.
Replace the bond maybe with a
Loan,
loan or a longer term bond,
uh-huh.
which would help. 20 or 25 years would give us a much better advantage.
Mhm.
And then also looking at whether these project cost estimates are real versus our 1.8 million or 1.1 million that we had put in as an average. And seeing what kinds of costs or what kind of grant ratios we'd have. Right now, we've got 72% in this list.
Mhm.
So if it could be 85 or 90, depending on what you guys think, depending on the projects. And I'm assuming that maybe those flooding projects will have a better payback for us in terms of grant coverage. But they will know that for sure, because they've been through this, haven't they?
Who's they?
Or EOR.
Oh, yeah,
It's
I would think
Rochester,
so, I
yeah.
would think so.
And that will tell us that whether that number has to be down or up or what it's gonna be, or the grant percentage will be higher than what we have now of 72.
Well, we know that Anne has had more experience with grants than I think anybody else on that staff now. Megan had
Well, I think
incredible amount of experience. Emily has
a lot of experience, she should be
so
part of that discussion too.
she and Anne, I think, working together can put together a very nice package for us. One of the other places I didn't mention is the counties. Not only, can we try to levy through them for a better rate and less expense, for it, but we can, ask for a loan from them. So I'm gonna talk to my commissioner. I don't know how Fran's gonna feel with, what is it, 7 other watersheds in Washington County? Like dogs fighting over a bone.
Nobody's as aggressive as we are, though.
That's true. That's very true. So do you want to take a shot at him, or do you want, Mike to do it?
What, no, what do you think? What's something we wanna, he probably isn't aware of the problem we have right now. Cause we didn't discuss this with him last year.
No, but, well, yeah, I think there's some things we need to work out, because this piece about the interest,
He may be
Yeah,
looking to add an accountant to the board.
so, but I think the point about trying to get into next year, which about the interest rates are likely at this point
Mhm.
to go down.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pressure
Yeah.
and that would make a difference then too, otherwise, so.
You
And-
can push some of this on him by saying that he should never give advice on what percentage his watersheds should be using for him. That's part of the problem. He scared everybody on Washington County side to not looking at higher limits because of the increase, I mean. It's not that, it's how big are you and how aggressive you are to get things done. That's really, and what your geography is. You know, what your ecosystem is like.
I mean, I could talk to the finance director again and the county administrator. You know,
Mhm.
again, so see if that offer still stands in terms of being able to just get onto a general council or bond that they would have. But again, I would agree that there's no urgency with it if we waited and just,
Mhm.
at least start the conversation and then maybe be ready for it next year.
Well, we can talk to our bankers. They would probably have a better insight on this than we would. I mean,
Well, I did talk
they're,
to-
they're depend, they
and
depend
Emily-
upon that.
Emily, I think, talked to them.
Well, they'll
first.
probably tell, oh, no, that's never gonna pick, because they don't wanna
Mhm.
Well,
include
yeah,
it.
they want, well, they also want to get the higher interest. loan,
Right,
too.
right. They'll just push the low interest loans out faster.
Yeah. Well,
So,
we'll just talk to the counties and see what we can do, piggyback off of their efforts. That's nothing for the county budget, $1 million. Well, we have to get something out on the 8th of March or August. Is there any wiggle room in that, Emily? I mean, we have another week that we can use?
That is a great transition. So our original budget schedule had the public hearing at our August 28th regular board meeting. If we want to, we are required to run notices in the newspapers for the 2 weeks preceding that meeting. So we're looking at the Thursday before, which is the 21st, the Thursday before that, which is the 14th. We need to have the notice to the newspapers by August 8th. We wanted to buy ourselves another couple weeks, we'd have to put out the public hearing date. The board can
We'd
set
have to. What did you say? We'd have to what? Push it out?
push out the public hearing date.
Okay, okay. And can we do that? We can do that, can't we?
Yep, as long as we have it done by and ready to certify by the 15th, we usually don't try to do that just because it gets down
I
to the
know.
wire, but next regular board meeting after August 28th would be September 11. And so our
Okay.
deadline to get it to the papers would be August 22nd.
Perfect, okay. Perfect. Does that give you enough time to turn things around to get it to the counties?
I would
Can you
say,
have it
yeah,
pre-
I can get all the documents prepared and everything, and then it's
Yeah.
just a matter of getting Mike's signature on everything is
Okay.
immediately after the hearing.
Fantastic,
Yeah, we did 2 days, Friday and Monday,
okay.
ideally. my
And,
preference is
and
that-
if you're not available, can my signature stand or is it just the administrator?
I don't know, but as I expect to be available on the 12th, and I'll, typically we try to handle.
Well, let's just have a backup plan,
Yeah, sure.
just in case, okay?
Alright.
Well, I think that helps because the chief CPA that's working on this, Bonnie, will be back on the 6th. Jessica won't be back until the week after that, sometime around the 14th. But we can get this done, I'm sure, in just a couple of days with Bonnie back in. And then I think we'll have a joint call, Zoom call or something with you in it as well, Emily, so that we can talk about that separation stuff as well. Okay, and again, this doesn't have to be the final. We still have until what, December, I forget the date, but early December, I think. If we want to go down, we can. We can't go up, but we can go down.
We need to certify the final levy by December 31st.
Okay, perfect.
And we need
So
to
we
offer
basi-
another public
go
comment
ahead.
opportunity in December. So December 19th is that regular meeting.
Yeah, so we can work on this in the beginning of December, have our meeting, public hearing, is that what you're talking about? Public
It's
hearing,
not technically a public hearing, but just opening up, it's like our public open forum, another opportunity for the public. There's no
Sure.
newspaper notice required, but
okay,
available
good,
in the meeting.
we'll have it on the agenda then, and so that
Yeah.
gives us these couple of extra weeks we need up front here.
so the other big key leverage point here is how we end up the year, 2025.
Mhm.
By December, we'll know where we are.
Yeah,
Right, so we need to, I just had printed out the sheets for June through June.
mhm,
And I'm gonna go through them, but you should have each of your managers look at how are they doing on their budget? Are they gonna be under? Are they gonna be over? And if they're gonna be over, we need to know that as much as if they're gonna be under. Because we have to know
Yeah.
that. We can't have a big surprise at the
Yeah.
end of the year.
Yeah,
So that would be helpful, maybe in your budget meetings to start, I mean, your Monday meetings to start thinking about that. And, whatever we can do, we can do. I don't know how
Yeah.
EOR's coming with their billings and all that too. Are they billing way more than we had forecasted and?
Well, we've been implementing some changes and, you know, one of them is, so with the permitting program, we're able to make some more immediate changes. Another one we'd have to do through, a rule change. But we could do it just for the fee amounts themselves, so we're working, I talked to Mike Sanders this morning about it during our permitting meeting, and so we're working on developing a path forward on that.
So if the percentage is different than what I'm using right now, let me know.
Yeah.
So we can put that in the budget.
So,
I forget what we're even using right now. Is it recovering 25% of our costs? Is that what, or no, it's
20.
20 or 21, something like that.
Mhm. Yeah, we're hoping to get it fixed.
but that's not the direction I think the board wants to go. We don't want to take that back. We have to, it's a last resort. But
Listen, if you can have any credibility with the public, you have to show a little bit of restraint in terms of cutting back some stuff, I think, you know, and so. If we don't do that,
This doesn't
then
cut
we
back-
are an LGU.
This doesn't cut back the program, it just changes the way that we're funding it. You know, having the
Right.
permittee cover more of the costs, this should have been done years ago.
Right, but it's getting more efficient and or else deciding to slow things up because we're gonna be pressed for cash and the smart thing to do is slow things up if you have to.
Right, and we already did that, you know, last year, if you recall, so by making some changes to the overall program, we went from 2.5 FTEs
Yeah.
down to 1.7.
Get invoices in after the January where we get past the deadline, so they don't get included in that year or something like that. But anyway, whatever you have to do. All right,
I'm talking. Are there any other points or comments or questions that you have? Those of you from the Zoom screen, Doug, we'll start with you. Anything more?
No, there's just kind of a lot to digest here, but I think it's starting to come together where we've got to go with this. And I think these have been very helpful
Yeah.
tonight.
Good, thank you for your input. Dave? What about you?
Yes, I guess, again, we're just operating under the two assumptions that we need to increase the levy by 50%. And the other assumption that I still hear is that we have to take out a loan to pay loans. So, those are our assumptions right now that I see.
Well. Yeah, to that last scenario is to use half a levy increase. So that reduces a little bit. You know, it's whether you do it over 1 or 2 years and then the bond or loan, you know, whatever we end up with that. Shares in that too. So if we wanted to go up higher on the levy, we can do that with that extra cash.
what does a 20-year loan versus 15 do for us?
I don't know where you can get a 20-year loan. I have no idea. 15 is the highest number I've ever heard.
Well, you get a 30-year loan on your house. Don't you?
Well, yeah, but I'm not sure that for this type of loan for a government unit has that kind of link added to it. Unless you're dealing with hundreds of millions of dollars. On
So when
some-
they build a $5 million building and they take out a loan on that or a bond on it,
Mhm.
it's gotta be paid back in 15 years.
Well, I think it's for that particular kind of structure, though. That's my point.
Yeah.
It's not for this kind of stuff.
Operating stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the bond people think that this is pocket change.
Right.
You know, we're agonizing
Right.
over 2 or 3 or, $4 million, anything under 10 is not too significant. That's why going to the counties is gonna be helpful. Because when they do bonding,
They combine them.
it's big money and adding hours is, a fraction of what they're doing, so.
In fact, they may want.
I guess that's the point I would like to add as well, is that not only are we suggesting a levy increase, but we kind of believe the county will be adding to that levy, their levy
Mhm.
increasing as well. So the tax burden on our property owners is going to be considerable this next time around. So it's just something for us to really think about.
Mhm.
Recently in the paper, the county, somebody from the county had said something to the effect of 30% for this next year,
Mhm.
30% increase.
Chisago County?
Yeah, my real
Yeah.
concern is I'm being priced out of my own property here. My
Yeah.
taxes are really pretty high.
Yeah. Well, I wish we could do it all on grants, but. We're gonna try to find grants for as much as we can. At a higher percentage point, we're not gonna give that up, that's been part of our soul from the beginning. Is, use those. Grant dollars, and thank God for the legacy amendment. Cause it was pretty
Yeah.
hard picking before that. But there's opportunity here, we just have to find the pathway to the door, that's it.
The other reason to have a list of projects like that, this can be part of our presentation, of what we've done in the past and how we accelerated. And how we've got these projects coming up still, and so we've got some concrete evidence of why we need this money.
Well, so there's a couple things. I mean, one is, there's some policy things that was mentioned before. Part of our problem has been, in my opinion, has been the fact that Bowser has just created a policy where they're they'll fund SWAs, but they won't fund diagnostic monitoring work that resulted in all the accolades that we've received for getting to these goals a lot faster. So that's a little bit frustrating that from a policy standpoint, the Bowser board. Well, but part of it is we haven't really presented that specific request. But I've brought it up to staff, including the executive director, to see about bringing it forward.
Mhm.
So that's one thing. So that, it's on the expense side, but on the revenue side, the other is, I guess, come back, but again, it's not an immediate solution, but does the board want me to pursue at least bringing forward some of the framework for what a sales tax would look like? I know I've got some other work to do to figure out
Mhm.
some of the value that Forest Lake itself brings to the community and how much, benefit is received, but right now, in general terms, there's probably 10,000 boats a year that come through the boat launches just on Forest Lake alone.
Yeah,
And so they're using the resource, they're having an impact, but it's being paid by the general levy and some limited amount of grants we're getting through the state. So,
I think we've all, or you've talked about that possibility in the past, and, I don't think anybody's opposed to finding out more about it. And it's gonna take a while because it goes through the legislature, but we just had the bonding, right, and the budget year. This year,
right, yes,
so I know I thought they were alternate, but I think they're together. So we can't address that until 2027. So what do we do in the meantime? I mean, that's the kind of,
yeah,
situation.
well,
I'm gonna call Stegner and Mara Baines, the last two mayors, and see what they say.
Yeah.
See if, how much has been looked at, maybe they haven't even thought of it, but I doubt that, if they haven't thought of it, then we might have the city trying to beat us to the
well,
punch.
that's it. I wouldn't talk to them for that.
Well, no, these are out of office now, Stegner and
Yeah.
Baines are gone, so.
But it would only come to us. I mean, it would come to the city and
No,
us.
no, I know, unless the city wanted to get in, and
Yeah.
but
they're looking at a 17% increase for next year.
Mhm.
Now, that's bumped up already,
Yeah.
so maybe they're looking at 13 or 12.
Because you're talking about Forest Lake, it reminded me, I went into their website when you sent out that memo about their levy. There was an article in the paper about the levy talk. And so I went online and their general fund is only overhead expenditures. They've got a lot more of them, of course, because they've got police and parks and all of that stuff. but none of the long-term projects were there. That was that separate, CIP, capital improvement programs. And, that's the way we did it at the township. There's in that manual for the cities of Minnesota, whatever it's called, exactly titled, but that, they have a structure that's pretty common among all of the cities and how they present things. And those big expensive, one in a lifetime kind of projects, or anything that lasts more than a year, basically, is on that CIP list. And so that's what we've been talking about here is duplicating that process. So if you guys want to take a look at one, go to the Forest Lake City website and under budgeting. And you'll see the documents that they've been using in their budget discussions. So you'll see those two documents, the general fund and the capital improvement funds. And we can look, like I said, Emily's already been doing that for us, through the big giant sheets that we get all the time, but we can reduce the type and create one that looks like that, taking all of that expense off of our general fund levy. So we're not looking at all of that information. It's good for it to be there, but we can have that consolidated sheet like was in here, where you see the levy funds for the general and the levy funds for capital. And there can be sub categories in there too, sub funds. That's where we get into having all that preliminary work listed separately. And that would be on the capital improvement project list, not on our general list. We don't want to show that we're budgeting for projects on the general fund. So that would be a great thing.
That's just another question, as you were talking, I was thinking. Our percent ratio is recommended by the auditors to be about 40% of next year's budget, right?
Well, it has nothing to do with the auditor anymore. It's
Well-
what is our 6-month carry forward that we need to pay, make sure we're not, counting our pennies, when May comes,
Right.
that we've got.
So what goes into that number that we have to cover,
Well, the auditors will say it's 33%.
right? But I mean, what categories, just like you have a CIP sheet and an overhead sheet?
Oh, it's what we've been talking about. It's our general expenses. The overhead expenses, which is salaries, benefits, and so on. It's operating the office, all of those utilities
Okay,
and,
but I think we've used the total budget for that number. I think we divide it by the total budget, which includes all the projects that are covered by grants.
no, we don't do that. These are set expenses that you have every month.
Okay,
So
I'll look at the ratios.
that's what I'm talking about. We are talking about removing is anything that does concern projects and programs. So if we've got preliminary fund money in the general fund, that should actually be over in the projects and program fund. So we can segregate the cost of doing the water quality work and the long-term projects or big projects from our operating expenses to keep the business environment going.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Anderson,
Yes,
before we adjourn, can we just look at the schedule really quickly? The CAC had scheduled a budget workshop on August 5th. That
Mhm.
is next. That is next Tuesday. I don't think we're
Okay.
gonna have anything for them. What would the board like to do? Would you like to suggest that the CAC postpone until we have more of a solid plan to propose to them?
well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I would have thought about it when I went home, and we should have talked about it, so thank you for that. Before we adjourn, I want to get the rest of the board's opinion on what we're comfortable sharing at this point. I think we're getting closer personally, and I think we have 2 scenarios that we have pretty well together. I want to get some of this stuff corrected though from the CPA first, but she's back on the 6th, so is that, I don't even know, I haven't looked up what day of the week that is. But if we can have some time to get that stuff corrected, it'll be a little more clear for them. And we can have a top level discussion about these two options that we're looking at. But I don't think we're ready to share detail until we have seen the final detail. That's my opinion. Mr. Baki, what do you think?
I agree.
Okay? Mr. Taves?
I agree as well.
Thank you.
I don't know that it's gonna hurt us. We're not gonna be too different from scenario 3.
Mhm.
Whether we're, gonna do it with a bond, or we're gonna do it with some
Mhm.
additional loans, or we're gonna do it by cutting things
Mhm.
down, like the number of projects we had in there and so forth, based upon the project list we have.
Yeah.
See whether we really have a lot of projects coming or not.
Yeah,
So if you wanna show them that, I mean, how's it gonna be different?
well,
It can't be any cheaper than that, because
Yeah.
you can't.
that doesn't concern me as much right now because Emily's got that cased out pretty well on her current format. We just need to put into this format so we can show it on the, all together on a workbook format. But she's already listed all the projects that we're working on, all the projects that we've gotten money on, all the ones that are still in suspense because they've been submitted, but we don't know yet if we've got a grant. And to me, that's perfect. We might just have to have of those other things added to it, but I think we're just trying to duplicate that sheet and add it to our general fund, which is separate.
I think what's gonna happen is the CAC is gonna say, wow, you guys are really tight. Why don't you cut some stuff? Why don't you postpone and prioritize? That's what they're gonna tell us.
Uh-huh.
Okay, because most of those people are from industry, so.
Well, I think we have been prioritizing along the way. We only do, that's true. That's true. That's why I'm asking for the same kind of booklet that was produced by EOR for Forest Lake.
By not doing a project isn't cutting it out, by postponing it and delaying it a year or so.
Postponing is fine, but what I'm talking about is that we need to have that booklet that says, okay, we did our preliminary investigation of this area, and these are the 10 projects that we think need to happen for cleaning up the water, and we're gonna start with the highest priority one, which is the biggest pollution load, and we're gonna work our way down from 1 to 10. That's what we need. That's so simple and logical and
Okay.
technical that it will hit all the buttons and the public can read it and understand it. So that's what I'm looking for, and we've got so many things going, but.
And what do they say, basically? That's great, you've done a great job, I'm quite happy with the water we have right now, I'm not sure I wanna spend another second cycle to get even better.
But not into the Comfort Lake zone. We haven't had the pleasure of having all of those projects done.
You're coming off the impaired list. You already got your numbers down,
Is that the only thing? No.
that's all the public sees,
Yeah, well,
So-
we'll have to talk around that.
You'll-
Yes, Mike,
Madam
that's by
President,
your own
managers.
information.
pardon me?
Well, I just want the board to know that, the CAC, we post these recordings, so they see, they have seen,
Mhm.
so
They
they.
can see what's going on here,
Right, it's all the.
and actually Aiden told them to watch tonight.
Did he really?
Well, or to check
Yeah.
the recording later, so,
Well, either way,
so I did get,
but if they sit through a meeting like this, they just.
Yeah.
But one of the CAC members from Bone Lake, so it's not hard to figure out. Mr. Fury, we talked over the weekend, and so, I mean, so he recognizes our position from having done all these big capital projects. But was very pleased to report to me that just the other day, the second depth reading was something like 2.3 or 2.5 meters, so for Bone Lake, so they recognize where, the position and, encouraging us to move to a process where we're getting at least 80% of the project cost covered by grants. And then the need to take additional loans out to carry us through this, so. I don't think this is a big secret to anybody and their support for us trying to take all the avenues, cutting expenses, becoming more efficient. Taking out a loan and increasing the levy as well, so I mean, it's gonna take all those things to
Mhm.
get us through.
Takes a little bit in each area.
Yeah, well, yes. I don't wanna cut staff though, because that cuts service, and we are a
No, we've
service
never talked about doing
organization,
that.
yeah, well. So I'm just saying out loud, that's not the route I wanna go. Thank you. I've got a question for Emily, but thank you, managers, for sticking in with us. It's nice to have other viewpoints besides Steve's. And he feels the same way
Yeah,
about
I'm the
me.
treasurer. I have paid to get a viewpoint, and pay is pretty good too, by the way.
Good night.
Yeah, good night.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Good
Let's
night.
get home before the thunderstorm hits.
Is there one coming?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Emily, I know that you know that there are
Is the
preliminary
meeting
grants.
adjourned? I'll stop the recording if the meeting's
Oh,
adjourned.
it's a workplace. I adjourn the workplace. Our business is done.
Okay.
Any objections?
No.
Okay,
No.
thank you.